Contributor to PCA.org, and I am driving a 2020 Porsche Taycan 4S. And in this video, I'm going to take you around this car, both inside and out, show you what it's like to drive, and take it on a road trip. And trust me, we're stopping at no gas stations. I hope you enjoy it. Okay. Welcome to a warm and windy Michigan afternoon in the winter, and take a look at this 2020 Taycan 4S painted in Carrera White Metallic, which is an $800 optional color. It is a beautiful color, really highlights the wonderful shape of this very futuristic looking Taycan. It's got these really fancy looking headlights and this kind of like teardrop shaped swoop coming down from it. Very minimalist front end, because there's no grille of anything to worry about, because there's no engine to keep cool. If you look over the car in profile, you can see that it has this like very long sloping roof and this very, very pretty, very large piece of glass over the top. We'll show you that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Those are the optional 20-inch Aero wheels, they are called, and they are currently riding on Pirelli P0 winter tires. That's right, winter in Michigan. This overall shape is actually based on a concept called Porsche 960 Turismo. And the original concept of the shape was, what if we could give a car with the proportions of a 918, but with 4 seats? And the problem was that with internal combustion engines, there was no way to build that shape. But since Porsche came up with the idea of like, hey, let's do a battery electric vehicle, they said, you know what, this shape works now. And they could build this like long, very sloping roof with these like minimalist proportions and still have 4 doors and 4 seats. And this actually seats 5. Coming into the back, you can see that the rear end kind of falls into this, you know, low hanging, long horizontal bar that says Porsche Taycan 4S right there. And I don't have anything to say about the tailpipes here because there aren't any. But I will tell you that I generally think this is a very beautiful shape and very well executed in terms of having nice design elements to incorporate into your battery electric vehicle. You know, there's a lot of BEVs out there that are kind of like frumpy in shape, and Porsche definitely did not follow that trend. I really like the shape of this car. All right, let's take a look inside. But as you can see, I've got it all open except for one thing. That's the rear, because I wanted to show you. Here we are, rear. So fancy. So this is the rear trunk. It has 14.3 cubic feet of space when there's not a big bag for a charger in there, but that's not necessarily a bad thing to keep in there. You also have another 2.8 cubic feet of storage in front. It's right there. And again, no engine. One little fun fact, because this is the 4S, you actually get a little bit more trunk space. The Turbo and Turbo S only get 12.9 cubic feet. So that's one small advantage you got. Looking in back, one thing I wanted to point out is it does seat 5, but barely. That does not look like a comfortable place to be in the middle. But if you're on either side, you do get heated seats, and you do get pretty darn deeply bolstered buckets. I mean, look at that. I am very much in this seat. This is nothing like bench seats of old for the second row. Oh, and this is a good spot to show you that big glass interior. That is tinted, thermally and noise insulated glass. It is really nice. All right, moving to the front. Very deep bucket seats here, very purpose. These are optional 18-way adjustable seats. And as you can see, there are lots of buttons for those adjustments. You know, this stuff is pretty standard here. Seat memory, lock, unlock, and windows and adjustments. But there are a couple of neat tricks I want to show here. The Taycan instrument cluster is just this big screen right here. You get another screen, like a wide screen right here, and a third screen down here, which when it's on shows more than my reflection. Hello. And yes, it's a Taycan, in case you forgot. But steering wheel has pretty usual set of buttons, but there's a couple I want to show off. This is the Recuperation button right here, okay? That's going to be something we talk about later. And then right here, you can't see it, but behind, right there, that's the heated steering wheel button, which obviously people that watch my channel know is a favorite of mine. Inside overall is a very comfortable place to be. There's another view of your big screen here, the panoramic screen. And there's lots of tech, there's lots of comfort, and there's lots of reasons to go and take this for a drive. Okay, briefly, this is what the instrument cluster looks like when it is all lit up. And the shifter, by the way, is right here, reverse neutral drive. This, it's P for park, but it's also the parking brake. There's technically no park in this car because there's no real transmission in the traditional sense. But that's just the thing. So that is the parking brake, even though it is effectively park. Here is the upper center console screen with the usual plethora of things to choose from, including like charging status, navigation, all that kind of stuff. And then down here is more of your climate control stuff. And look, my heated seats, and also cooled seats for the summer and all that kind of stuff. So these are what the screens look like when they're all lit up and going. Okay, clearly there's a lot of new to talk about in the powertrain, so we have to start there. The Porsche Taycan S has two permanent magnet motors, one on the front axle, one on the rear, give it all-wheel drive. And it's a really unique setup because while the front motor is a single drive-down gear, just like most electric cars are these days, the rear motor is actually a two-speed transmission that doesn't operate too dissimilarly to a dual clutch transmission. It can't be just like a dual clutch transmission because there's only two speeds, but it's a similar setup in the general sense. And what that allows is the electric motor can spin at a lower rate at higher speeds. And so that's what allows the Taycan to have such a high top speed considering it's an electric car. 155 miles an hour is definitely higher than average. This car, the 4S with the Performance Battery Plus, the key word there is plus, and you get 482 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque, and 562 horsepower for a 3.8 second launch with launch control. Regardless of powertrain, what the Taycan provides is extremely consistent and extremely quick throttle response for obvious reasons. There's no throttle to open, no gas to input, no different RPMs with different outputs and all those things to worry about. The second you hit the throttle, you get a response. And in the 4S with the Performance Battery Plus, it is a lot of response very quickly. And that's also satisfying to get such immediate results from inputs to the throttle, or the accelerator, I should say. And the other thing to keep in mind is, even though this car does not have the Sport Chrono package, it does have launch control. That's kind of rare, and that's a Taycan thing, that you get launch control even if you don't have the Sport Chrono package. And launch control is also really easy to use and really effective. Why don't I show you? Okay, slowing down, just put it in sport mode, foot hard on the brake, floor the accelerator, launch control activated. Oh. Oh God, it lost control. Oh, okay. That is extremely quick, extremely effective, and honestly feels faster than 3.8 seconds. That feels like a full G of force pushing you into the back of the seat. Like I could feel my stomach pushing against my spine. I'm not kidding. I mean, that is stomach wrenching in a good way. Is that a possibility? It must be, because it was. So to have such cool and effective and consistent and easy to use launch control, it's a huge highlight of the Taycan, and it's definitely a cool novelty to show off to friends that were a little skeptical of why you got something like this. I think that'll quiet them down awfully quickly. Well, they won't be able to talk because their stomachs will be pushed against their spines. So because I don't have the Sport Chrono package in this car, I have two driving modes, normal and sport. And interestingly, I also have three brake motor regen modes. They call it the Recuperation button, and you have three options: on, off, and we'll call it automatic. It might be adaptive. And that's interesting. So, because brake recuperation is actually pretty light, but when it's on, you get a little bit more than coasting levels of decel, like 1/2 tenth of G or something, nothing big. And then when it's off, you just get coast like you would in a normal car. But then when you put it in auto, what you do is you hold the button down, and you get the little button with an A in the middle of it, and that actually uses, you know, the adaptive cruise control. When it senses that a car is close to you, close in front of you, it will automatically give more motor regen and slow the car down at a faster rate. When I've been playing with it, I've gotten, you know, a couple tenths, maybe 3/10 of a G out of it automatically. So it's a noticeable difference when it's in automatic mode. I tend to just prefer it in on mode. I'm used to a little bit of decel from an electric car, so I think there's just kind of a comfort in it. But generally speaking, Porsche has a very old school approach when it comes to one pedal driving. More or less, they're against it. They want the brakes and everything to feel like they would in any other car. So you have a brake recuperation button. They just call it the Recuperation button, but it doesn't do that much. But the car actually does a lot of motor regeneration decelerating. You have a tach that shows you power output and recuperation, and the Taycan can accept up to 265 watts of recuperation. That's 355 horsepower of recuperation when you hit the brakes. Put it another way, you can decelerate at more than 1/2 a G before the friction brakes are doing any work. It's all the motor, and that's really impressive. So I can hit the accelerator like this, and the friction brakes aren't doing a thing, and I'm already stopped. Now I have to say, I've really grown to like one pedal driving. I really like having a neutral point in the throttle where I can start accelerating, and then I can, with just one pedal, I can control how much decel I get without touching the brake. That's a personal preference that I enjoy. And who knows, maybe future Taycans will give you more options there. You'll have more flexibility. But what I will say, and this is much more important, is that when you are on the brakes feel really natural. You don't have this obvious transition from motor regeneration decel to friction brake decel. It all flows really well. The integration is spot on, and that's crucially important and the most important thing. So this is something I can easily live with, even though I actually would prefer the one pedal driving. It's not just the powertrain that's advanced here. You have really fantastic suspension geometry to work with. You have double wishbone front suspension, multi-link rear suspension, and you have a really solid feeling chassis that it's mounted to. You've got no quivers or weird motions in the body. Everything closes, like all the doors close with a solid ka-thunk, and even going over uneven pavement, the car always feels really stable. On top of that, you've got adjustable adaptive shock absorbers, and you've got air springs to help keep load leveling and have options for ride height and everything like that. And you have the option of getting adaptive anti-roll bars as well. This car does not have that. It just has standard roll bars, but you have that adjustability as well. And on top of that, of course, it's tuned really well. So when I'm in normal mode, I have a fantastic ride. I mean, it's very pleasant, it absorbs bumps really easily, and kind of duh, of course, it's really quiet in here. There's no internal combustion engine to have to overcome the noise of. And this car comes with a $1,130 option of thermally and noise insulated glass, which makes it basically thicker and helps keep more road and wind noise out. And it's quite quiet in here. It's really easy to carry a conversation. And there's another advantage with that. If you're on more of a spirited drive, it's really easy to hear what the tire is doing. And you actually can get a little bit more information from the tire than you normally would by hearing it. And put this in sport mode and it handles really well as well. Despite having more than a 114-inch wheelbase and weighing nearly 5,000 pounds, 2.5 tons, it has excellent body control, very minimal motion when you're rolling into a corner or accelerating or braking, and you've got darn decent turn-in response for such a heavy car and a heavy front end. I mean, well, that's part of it. The front end isn't quite so heavy. So from an objective point of view, this thing handles better than you'd expect. And I'm on Pirelli P0 winter tires. So this is far from the ideal tire to have. It has squishier sidewalls, which would hurt turn-in response, and it still feels pretty darn decent. And I have supportive seats as well that are holding me well in place. So objectively speaking, this thing handles really well. And even steering feel, no, it's not as good as a 911, but you know, it's not far off. I mean, obviously the wheel's not alive in my hand like the good old hydraulically assisted days, but the wheel is plenty precise, it's weighted really nicely, and I have a really good sense of the limit of the car. So it's really easy to correct and adjust and stay lively. Same with my backside. It's really easy to feel the attitude of this car and get a sense of where I'm going. But is the emotional connection quite as good? Well, no, it's not quite the same. And it makes me really wonder why. I mean, I'm not hearing an engine scream to its red line as I blast out of a corner. I'm not hearing, you know, those guttural responses. I'm not smelling any kind of exhaust as something's working hard for me. And I don't have those like old, like raw analog senses. And the thing I question though is, does that mean because this Taycan doesn't smell or make as much noise that it's not communicating? Is this car not communicating to me, or is it just speaking a different language and communicating just as much? Are electric cars worse, or are they just different? I can't put my finger on it. So there's only one thing I can do. I'm gonna go back to my favorite roads and drive it again. And then I think I'll go and do it a third time. And you know, I think I have enough charge. I'll do it a fourth too. To be honest with you, I'm having a lot of fun. All right, it is 9 in the morning and I'm in my driveway. It is 32 degrees outside according to the thermometer. I have the Porsche thermometer. I have 81% charge and 167 miles of range. And I'm about to go on a bit of a trip. Nothing too super long, more of a, how is this thing like in the winter? Is there some range anxiety that creeps up that I need to worry about, things like that. But I have to say, I'm already feeling the benefits of having an electric car. All I did was pull out of the garage and set up the cameras and stuff, and the cabin's already warm. I warmed my hands with the heated steering wheel and my backside with the heated seats, and I'm getting nice hot hair from the climate control system. That all turned on right away. It's separate from the engine, so the engine doesn't have to warm up because the engine doesn't exist. It's a motor. So there's just a heating unit. So it's like, electric unit you plug inside your house. The second you turn it on, it starts blowing warm air. So that's like a distinct advantage of an electric car in the winter,
is you don't have to wait for anything to warm up to start warming you up. So anyway, 167 miles of range, and I've gone 0.0 miles. Okay, I have driven just a little bit less than 30 miles, 28 miles, and it's mostly just been driving around my area a little bit. Generally speaking, my range has dropped about as much as you expect range to drop. It's more or less stood in line with what it said. So I started with whatever it was, 160 some, and now I have 136. I've kept the heat at 68. I had the heated seat on and warmed up. Now I'm fine with it off. Same with the heated steering wheel. I've got my iPhone in the wireless charger underneath the center console bin right here. That's wirelessly charging, and I'm listening to podcasts on my phone and using the entertainment system, using the climate control system, and driving. So far, it's been completely comfortable. But now I'm going to get on the road, get on the interstate, and accumulate some real miles. Okay, I am officially on the interstate, more or less going with the flow of traffic in terms of speed. It's a little bit after 11 in the morning. I've gone 50 miles so far, showing 114 miles of battery charge left. And there is an Electrify America charging station, I think about 80-ish miles from here, and that's my next stop. Okay, I am north of Flint, and I'm officially headed towards a charging station. The charging station is 40.7 miles away, and I have 66 miles of charge. All right, going over the top of the Zilwaukee Bridge, which is always kind of this like emotional transition from lower Michigan to upper Michigan, even though obviously we're still in the lower peninsula for a couple hundred miles. But I'm crossing over the Zilwaukee Bridge right now, but I have to admit the anxiety is a little bit on the high side. I am now have 34 miles of range left, and theoretically I'm about 10 miles from the charging station, so should be just fine. But one thing that was interesting is once we got down to, let's say, less than a quarter charge, the Taycan alerted me, hey, you're getting close on charge. Should we help you find stations? And I said, sure. And I looked it up, and it actually had a pretty long list of places to go, different dealerships, Nissan dealerships, Audi dealerships, and other things like that, which gave me, a decent number of options. And what was surprising about that was, like I said, I've been using Electrify America. There's only a few scattered throughout the state, and obviously most of them are in Metro Detroit. And but no, if you expand your horizons even just the smallest bit, you have lots of options. And I think it's really important to remember, I'm in Michigan, and I'm heading away from the biggest city in Michigan out to nothing but rural areas and small towns. It's beautiful up here. I absolutely love northern Michigan. But in terms of population centers and in terms of, the latest trends and, electric vehicles, yeah, this is not exactly the hotspot for those things. So to see that I have that many number of options in this part of the country, and this is on a Saturday no less, yeah, that was a little bit surprising and also satisfying to see. 24 miles of range left, and I am exiting the interstate. My destination is a mile and a half away. I have plenty of range. I never slowed down. I've gone almost 135 miles. And I've done all of this. It's never been warmer than 35 degrees outside. And I've never been colder than 68 degrees inside. There's the Meijer sign. Electrify America is supposed to be at that Meijer. Oh, that looks promising. Those look like charging stations. So what I see right now are Electrify America stations and then Tesla chargers right next to them. And look at that, they are all available. Who would have thought? In northern Michigan. The car is parked. I have 23 miles of range left, and I'm at a 350 kilowatt Electrify America charger. I'm still parked at the Electrify America station, but I am now have 85% charge and 175 miles of range. Now heading home, it's going to be more straight route home, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to be easy in terms of charge. I was charging for 31 minutes and I went from 11% charge to 85% charge, and the fastest it was charging was 156 kilowatt hours. That was the rate of charge, and then, you know, towards the end it got down to under 100, but, you know, it was never slower than that really. And 31 minutes for another 150 miles of range, you know, not bad at all. And I was at a Meijer, and there's plenty of things at a Meijer. Anyway, yep, back for the trip home. And EV life is a little bit different than what I'm used to in terms of road trips, but really a lot less different than you'd probably think. All right, it is 3:30 in the afternoon, and I am just a few miles from home now, just on some back roads. And I thought I would summarize the trip. You know, I have 68 miles of range left, so I'm guessing when I have around 65 when I pull in. I've gone, and I'll have a picture of this at the end, I've gone just under 250 miles, which means I've gone just over 250 miles. And it was an extremely pleasant experience to be in this car on a road trip. Like I mentioned at the start, the car warms up right away. You have access to, you know, I had access to heated seats, heated steering wheel, cooled seats if I wanted it. My cell phone was charging and it was also plugged in, so I was listening to podcasts or listening to music. I had everything going, everything operating, and I had, 100. I did a longer way up there, and I had, 140 miles one way, and I still had 25 miles of range left. So it was a great experience, and I don't think any different than other experience I'd have in an internal combustion engine car. So really, I've come to the conclusion that EVs, especially this Porsche Taycan, is a better winter car than an internal combustion engine car, because you have to wait less for the conveniences you want in the winter, like keeping warm. You have to worry less about things getting up to operating temperature, and you just go about your day. It's more convenient. It's less inconvenient to drive in the winter in one of these cars. And the only thing that you have to worry about is range, and we're now to the point where we have enough range and enough infrastructure to not worry about that so much. I live in Michigan, and I went to rural Michigan on this trip, and I didn't have an issue with charging. I mean, think about that. So yeah, great car, and great EV, wonderful experience. And I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching.